mula sa Asian Community Development Council. Ito ang Fil Am in Focus. Mondays at 12 noon, right here on PHLV Radio.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Fil Am in Focus, brought to you by the Asian Community Development Council, or ACDC. This is the place where we share stories, celebrate wins, and talk about the challenges and opportunities facing Filipino Americans and the wider Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander community. Ako po ang inyong host, Edelweiss Solano. And today we're talking about something that affects every one of us, which is our voice and our vote. And as Nevada prepares for the upcoming primary elections, many voters still have questions about registration, mail ballots, voting locations, language access, and how to make sure their vote counts. And to help us navigate all of that, we're honored to be joined by Nevada Secretary of State, Cisco Aguilar. And thank you, Secretary, for joining us today. I'm sure our viewers and listeners are very excited to hear directly from you.
Great. Well, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Yes, Secretary, so before we get into election information, I love to hear your story. I mean, public service is always, not always an easy path, but it's more of a passion. So can you tell us more about your story?
Yeah, you know, I never intended to be in elected office. This is my first time running for office, so I get to serve the great state of Nevada. But it really came back to making sure some of our vulnerable communities had a voice. You know, I had the opportunity to build a school in North Las Vegas called Cristo Rey High School. And talking to the students in November 2020 about the election and whether or not they were too young at the time to participate themselves, but their parents could vote, right? The school is 86% Latino, 10% Black. And I asked the students, did your parents vote? Did your parents vote? And they kept saying no, no, no. And it started to make my heart hurt because Clark County School District's the 5th largest school district in the country. It's majority minority. And if we're going to change our educational system to be better than what it is, parents have to vote. They have to elect people who believe in public education, are going to invest in public education. And I then decided, you know, this is an opportunity to run for Secretary of State to make sure we're getting our communities to vote.
And you are been in office for 3 years and three and a half years,
Yes.
I believe. And wow, that's a very inspiring story, Secretary. And I'm sure, you know, you are providing like more of a community work. So that's what you based your the things that you do.
Well, Nevada is such a diverse state,
Yes.
and we have so many different communities here. They're all beautiful communities, but we need to make sure our voice is heard. Nevada is a battleground state, we're a purple state, we're a swing state, and if we get turnout to be high in these communities, we're going to swing elections in the direction of electing people that really care about us and our priorities. And they will see that the Filipino community turned out in large numbers, and the reason they won was because of that turnout. So then those issues become the priority of the elected official. And if we make that message known, we will really make Nevada a place to be for so many of us.
Yes, and where the voice is heard, like what you
Right.
said, I love that, and where issues of our communities are resolved.
Right.
So,
And our elected officials have to look like our community. Right? Our county commission has to look like us, our state legislature has to look like us, our city councils have to look like us, because if they don't understand our issues unless they live it. And if you live those issues, you're going to make them a priority, and you're going to get other people involved in the solution to those challenges.
I love that. You make it a priority. Those elected officials make it a priority, and that's what they will be fighting for.
Exactly.
I love that. And many people wait until November. Some people, especially in our communities, and skip the primary election altogether. And why is it participating in the primary election is as important as voting in November?
So primaries are actually the most complicated elections for elections officials to administer. And the reason is there are so many names on the ballots, and we have to make sure everybody's given an equal opportunity to make their case of why they should be elected. And because there are so many individuals in certain races, a few votes will swing that election. And so if there is a really great candidate, we need to turn out and support them, because if we don't, they potentially could not get the votes to move on to the general election. And a few votes will actually make that difference. And I think it's important to understand that, again, if we want our voice to be heard, we want people to understand what our issues are, we have to identify which candidate best represents those ideals and go and support them in a time that's very, very important.
Yes, well, thank you for clarifying and providing that information, Secretary.
But it's also, too, I think it's important to know, this primary election in the city of Henderson, there is a very important ballot question, and it's question 1. And it has to do with whether or not they continue to fund parks and recreation. Henderson has some of the most beautiful parks, they have some of the most beautiful trails, and that tax is about to sunset. But if it sunsets, the money goes back to the county. They doesn't change what amount of tax they're paying. So citizens of Henderson need to get out and vote in favor of question 1 to continue to build the beautiful city that they have.
I see. And it is during the primary elections where
Only.
decisions
Yes.
are made.
Correct.
I
Some of
see.
those tax questions that impact your community are sometimes only made during the primary election.
I see. Well, thank you again for that information, Secretary. And for those planning to vote on Election Day, which is on June 9, coming
Yes.
up, what are the most important things that they need to know about mail ballots or even voting in person?
Yeah. Nevada runs some of the most safest, secure, and accessible elections in the country. Accessibility being a priority. In Nevada, we had 2 weeks of early voting, which we're in the middle of right now.
Yes.
We're in our second week of 2 weeks of early voting. We have universal mail ballot, which every registered voter gets a mail ballot in the mail.
Yes,
And
just
we're
like this
yes,
one
and
we
we're
have.
we're asking people to go to myballot.nv.gov to track the mail ballot.
Yes.
You can get text messages, emails about where your ballot is. If had you signed up earlier, you would have been notified, hey, the county's mailing your ballot. Hey, the post office has your ballot, or your ballot is now arriving, and then you know when to expect it. But then when you mail it back, it also tracks it for you. But given the changes in the post office, it's very important, if you're going to vote by mail, is to mail it by tomorrow. But if you want to hold on to it till Election Day, you can. You have that option. Is take that mail ballot to a polling location like Greenland,
Yes.
and drop it off at the
Yes.
ballot box
Yes,
there.
which is the new polling location.
Which is
Okay.
wonderful. I mean, Greenland is a beautiful place, and it's yummy too.
Yes, it is. You can buy a lot of like
You
cool
buy a
stuff.
snack and drop off your mail ballot.
Yes, exactly. And it's actually we did a balloting back then. I was forming you last Monday during Memorial Day, and it was a lot of like we saw a lot of like early voters back then. So
Love
that
it.
was awesome. And then I know because especially in our AA and HBI communities, voting can be overwhelming. So I love how you clearly explained all of that, Secretary, and providing
too,
those
if-
guidance.
Right, and if you want to vote on Election Day, you can. And that's the great thing. And we actually have new machines now, or new process. So when you go to a polling location, you check in, you get your card, you go to the machine, you vote, you press all the races you want to vote in, and at the end of it, it'll print the ballot for you, and you can look at that paper ballot. It may verify that all your elections are correct, and then you take that paper ballot to the tabulator, and you put it in the tabulator yourself. Instead of, I don't know if you remember, there was a receipt
Yes.
on the right-hand
Yeah.
side, which I thought was the craziest thing in the world, because I didn't understand it, and so why would the average person understand really what is happening there? Instead of that receipt, you actually get a paper ballot now, which is
Yes.
really exciting.
Yeah, and your deputy secretary Ruben was telling us about it. Like, you are a very strong advocate for modernizing systems. And hearing that, what are the specific systems that you have implemented in your office?
So we've been really focused on modernization, innovation, and transparency. And modernization, innovation lead to transparency. Transparency is making sure everybody understands the process, understands how it works, because if we have that, people will build trust in the process. And having trust is very important in our elections. If people have trust, they will participate in the process. And that's what we want. We want, again, is get as many people out there to vote, because more people that vote, the clearer we are of what the expectations are for the future of the state and our communities. But again, it's where we implemented the voter registration election management system prior to the 24 election, which brought all 17 counties onto the same system, so that we can make sure every county is doing elections the same way, but also gives me information to be able to make better decisions about our elections, but also to give voters real information. If you go to nvsos.gov/vivid, VIVID, you can see how many mail ballots are mailed, how many have been returned, how many have been accepted, how many have been processed, how many need a curing, but also too in that same dashboard, you can go and see how many people are turning out every day by county in real time.
Oh.
And then you can see an aggregate of how many voted across the entire state. You can see it Republican versus Democrat or other parties. So the information we're giving is coming out in real time as it's happening in the local county.
Oh, wow.
And that is about
awesome.
transparency, but we
Yes.
couldn't do that before if we didn't have the bigger infrastructure.
Yes.
And then again, it's about cybersecurity.
Yes, and that's awesome. I mean, real-time data from
Yes.
that dashboard. So that's nvsos.gov/vivid.
Vivid.
That's awesome. That's great information
We
for
haven't
our
really
community.
told a lot of people about it yet because we want to make sure the system was working like I
Yes.
wanted it to work. I didn't want to put something out there and then have it not work the way we thought it was
Yes.
going to work, but it's working. And so at some point we'll make a big public announcement about, hey, there's this dashboard now. And we're the first state in the country to have this information. And so we're really setting an example here in Nevada for the rest of the country.
Oh, that's awesome, and we're ahead of everybody if that works. Oh my God, that's awesome, Secretary. And you talk about accessibility. So can you tell us about the American Sign Language services and other accommodations available for voters?
Well, we want to make sure, again, that every community has a voice. And one of the things, especially with American Sign Language, is they can actually use our digital system. So we have EASE, which is our digital platform where they can vote from their home on a laptop, they can vote from their mobile phone, and they can use the systems that they're comfortable using to help interpret other information, to interpret the elections and cast their ballot in a safe and secure way. So really using technology that people already use to make their life easier and their participation easier. But language access is a huge priority for our office. You know, we know that Spanish and Filipino are some of the most spoken language in this community. So it's first is English, second is Spanish, and third is Filipino. And if you want a ballot in Filipino, you can request it in Filipino.
Yes.
And it's really interesting is 50% of Latinos request their mail ballot in Spanish.
50%?
50%.
Oh,
That is a huge number.
Yes.
But it's a beautiful thing because we're able to get them to participate in the language they're comfortable. So, and if you can't, and we don't print ballots in other than those three languages, but if you go to Greenland or you go to a specific polling location in your neighborhood where a specific language is spoken, there will most likely be a poll worker on site who can help you through the process in your native language. And Lorena Portillo, who is the
Yes.
registrar for Clark County,
Yes.
is very committed to making sure polling locations are serving the neighborhood in which they're located.
Yes, and it's always you spoke about it, the trust and the confidence of any voter, and who understands their background, their culture, and to be able to speak with someone using
Right.
your own language to
Right.
help you with all the process. That's amazing, and having those poll workers, that's very essential in those locations.
Well, I grew up in a bilingual home.
Yes.
My mom spoke Spanish. Our neighbors, my family members all spoke Spanish. Lorena grew up in so growing up in these types of environments help you make the priority. And again, that's why we need to elect people who understand what it's like to live in our communities, because then we start to see changes like this actually happen.
Yes, this is wonderful to hear, Secretary. And I understand that one pager about the primary election will be available because we also spoke with Ruben on the needs, and also it was Victoria, if I'm not mistaken, with the language access coordinator, that in the northern Nevada, these are the languages we need, like Hindu, Bengali, and the top Asian languages too, not only Tagalog, but also Chinese, Vietnamese. At least knowing those essential information is important for our communities to
Right.
know about.
And we're really trying to is make sure we're reaching tribal communities. And tribal community languages are a bit different because of dialects, but again, we can make an effort to try to get as much language about elections out into the different communities across the state.
Yes, oh, that's
So,
good.
but it's not only
know.
stopping on the election
Yeah,
side, we're also moving it to the business side because we know, our communities are entrepreneurs.
Right.
And if we can get them to do business
Yeah.
in a language they're comfortable, it's all about building economic power. And if we build economic power, we'll have more say and more ability to engage where decisions are being made. And then when we have economic power, we can support people running for office, and then people, if see people like them running for office, they're more likely to get out and vote.
Yeah, and it's a domino effect.
It is.
It is, yeah. Okay, wow, that's great. And how are you, how is your office making sure all Nevada stay informed and finding that accurate election information?
So one is, again, making sure we have multiple places to gather information, but reminding people you have to go to the trusted source. That is your local elections clerk. It is the Secretary of State's office. But one thing is we have to communicate where people are. People are very digital focused now. And during the 24 election cycle, we were one of the first states to send direct text messages to voters to say, and then we tested the program by targeting first-time voters, saying, hey, and young voters, to say, hey, this is going to be one of the first times you voted. Just so you know, your mail ballot is coming. Oh, you should have your mail ballot now. You haven't voted yet, but you still have until X to vote. Get out and vote. And it really, with that program, we had the 4th highest youth turnout in the country for elections in 24. And it wasn't that hard to do. It's having the motivation and the priority to make that a possibility. And so knowing that people communicate by text message now, we need to make it a standard form of communication, but we have to do it in a trusted format so that they know it's coming from the Secretary of State's office and not some crazy person who has your number and sends you investment advice.
That's true. And then you have to really adapt into the changing times, changing technology, and capturing those like Gen Z? Yeah, the young kids, yeah, whether like through text message, so that's awesome.
And social media too, unfortunately, it's a lot of people look at social media, and we have to be able to use these platforms, and getting that understanding is important to ensure we're.
Yes, and it's not only the youth that are using it, even the older population is like on their phones right away.
Well, and WhatsApp is a big platform for conversation, and so those are environments we have to engage.
Yes, and I was also, we were actually having conversation with Ruben, and we mentioned that, it is through WeChat as well, those text messaging platforms that our communities like interact, not just Facebook, but also like WhatsApp, what you mentioned. And when you think about a voter walking into a polling location, what is it about that you want to feel afterward when they go cast a ballot and do all those things?
Well, I want the voter to have a good experience. I want it to be efficient. I want it to be welcoming. I want them to feel comfortable. And then to do it quickly, right? People are busy, and so we need to make sure the time that is spent is an acceptable amount of time. And with the new system, I get data about how long it takes somebody to vote. And we really want to make sure that we're doing what we can to make it more efficient. And because of the fact we implemented the new system in 24, MIT did an analysis of all the states across the country and how they actually administered their elections. They looked at technology, they looked at wait times, they looked at response rates. Nevada in 22 was number 13 in this report, and in 24, we are now number 2. So we run the second best elections in the entire country, and that's why that voter experience when somebody walks into a polling location is so important. It's like when they walk into Nordstrom's or they walk into, a sushi shop. You want to make sure that person has a good experience because you want them to come back. And so that's what we're trying to do. And the other thing is we need community members to become poll workers. Because if community members are poll workers and a voter walks in and sees somebody that looks like them, they're going to be like, I feel much better being here. And so we really want to encourage as many people to consider being poll workers as well.
Then how do they become a poll worker?
So you go to the county website, and there is a button there that says apply to be an election worker.
I see.
And you can do it, and it pays money. And in Nevada, you only have to be 16. So young people can come be poll workers for a specific period of time. They can make some money, and then they can move on to whatever else they want to do.
Yeah, so one of the initiative of ACDC is also doing youth registration. So when going into high schools and letting them know about those opportunities, and they were like, oh yeah, I can make extra money. So that was like a draw with them. And also another important thing is becoming an election protection volunteer.
Yes.
Worker.
So that's on the other side of the actual administration of the election. But there are organizations that do the election protection, which is very important because we need to make sure that the voters having a good, fair experience.
And especially like what you always emphasize is
Right.
having those poll workers who looks like the
Voter.
them. So
Correct.
yeah, because it's more or less intimidating.
Right.
Yeah, and I remember like receiving also like going to the election, like voting time, and then yeah, it was easy. It's a easy breezy process. So you're always continuously improving
We have
the
to.
systems. So in the future, what other improvements are you foreseeing?
So one thing that's going to probably happen in Nevada is voter ID. You know, there was a ballot initiative in 24. It passed by 73% of the vote, which means the majority of the people are going to want it. In 26, it's probably going to pass again. So my office is going to be the one to implement that. And we're already talking about, do I think it's necessary? No, I think it's a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. Nevada runs really safe and secure elections. But if this is what voters want in Nevada, we're going to do it. And so having that mindset, we can now start looking at technologies to make the voting experience even better. And one of them is, I don't know how the last time you went to the airport, but now there's different lines for people to go through. There's the touchless line where you don't even pull out your ID, you just walk up and walk in, and it's 2 seconds. And so it's looking at what technology can we put in at the check-in for in-person voting to make that experience even faster, but also to make it even more secure from a standpoint of a voter's perception. And so it's looking at those types of technology. Again, every new voter now is a digital native. They were born with a phone or a tablet in their hand. And we have to figure out how to get young people to use what they're used to using to participate. They get a paper mail ballot and they're like, what is paper?
Yeah, like what is a hard copy?
Why can't I
Yeah.
just do it on my phone? And again, we're not there from a security standpoint, but we have to start thinking about these things in the long term. It may not happen in the next 5 years, but we have to start thinking about it, because if we're going to get young people to turn out, and they're the future of this country, we have to meet them where they are.
And you have to start the foundation.
Correct.
for that. And I wouldn't be surprised that Nevada becomes number 1. Like that. I know. So, Secretary, I mean, time flew by. And before we wrap up, what's that one final message that you'd like to share for first-time voters, immigrant families, and members of the AA and HBI community?
I think one is understanding that polling locations are going to be safe environments. We have processes in place to protect voters. It is a felony in Nevada to intimidate a voter. So people should feel comfortable going to a polling location. We are working behind the scenes to make sure that we don't have certain individuals showing up at polling locations to intimidate voters, mostly the federal government. But we are working at the local level to make sure it is a safe space. But again, your vote does matter, because some of these races are going to be won by very few votes. In 24, North Las Vegas had a city council election, and that race was won by 7 votes. So imagine everybody in the ACDC office who turned out to vote. You could change the outcome of an election, and when you change who gets elected, you're changing the future of that community. So again, your vote does matter. If we really want to have a say in what our country, and what happens in Nevada, happens in the rest of the country. The road to the White House comes through Nevada, and our votes are super important.
Wow. Very inspiring, Secretary, and thank you again for joining us and taking the time to clarify all of the information, resources, and all that you're doing at your office to
Thank
make
you.
it safe, have a great voting experience for our community. So thank you very much once again.
No problem. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And thank you to everyone listening and watching Fil Am in Focus, brought to you by the Asian Community Development Council. If you have questions about voting or elections, visit nvsos.gov or call 775-687-8683 or vote for trusted election information. And to learn more about ACDC and the work that we are doing in the community, visit acdcnv.org. I'm Ado Baisalano, and thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Fil Am in Focus. Maraming salamat po.